After Yang. And this is a film that was released a couple of years ago. I can't remember exactly when, but I think it was actually during the pandemic. I think that's when it came out, during the pandemic. And it stars Colin Farrell and Jodie Turner-Smith. And there's some things in this film that I feel, if it had been released wider and all the time, there's some things that in this film that we would still be talking about. Number one, the title sequence. This film has got a title sequence like no other I have seen in film history. It might be some TV shows, but not in films. And the title sequence is essentially, because it's set in this futuristic world, where it might be a world you don't really know what country you're in or anything like that. You have Colin Farrell and you have Jodie Turner-Smith, and they are a couple, and they have adopted a young Chinese girl. So they adopted a Chinese girl, but in this world, you can also buy, it seems like adopting Chinese children is a big thing, but you can buy what they call them the synthetic humans, essentially. The synthetic humans are androids, and you can buy, and so they buy one called Yang to be an older brother for this Chinese girl that they've adopted, so that she still has a connection to her Chinese heritage. So he talks to her about China and talks about all these different things, and that she learns Chinese from him. He calls her Mei Mei, which is the Chinese word for younger sister. She calls him Gaga, which is the Chinese word for older brother, that kind of stuff. And the opening sequence is that they have this game that they play in this world where they say for families of four, and essentially you stand in front of you just see a screen, and they just keep jumping around all these different families with people in them. You have like Oscar nominees, you have actors, and they are all doing this dance sequence. Like think something like Just Dance or Dance Dance Revolution, and they're playing this game, and they're all just doing this dance and it just keeps jumping about. And the opening sequence for this is mad, and I cannot believe that more people do not talk about the opening sequence of After Yang. It is crazy. It is brilliant, and it is the action highlight of the film. Because after that, what happens is, as they're doing this dance sequence, all of a sudden they all stop doing the dance, but then Yang keeps doing the dance, and they're like, Yang, stop, Yang. And then you find out that what happens is that Yang has malfunctioned. So Yang has malfunctioned, and and they're trying to, and the rest of the film is them trying to figure out what has gone wrong with Yang. How do we fix him? Because in this world, if a synthetic human stops working, they actually start decomposing. So it's not just kind of like, synthetic skin, that's all fine. They start decomposing. And there's also a world in which they have clones and all that. So while Colin Farrell as the dad is trying to find out more, he's trying to find out, okay, how do we fix him? And he goes to pretty much an Apple store. And it's an Apple store for synthetic humans. And anybody who's been to an Apple store and tried to get a phone or a laptop fixed will understand the pain of this scene where he goes to the Apple store trying to fix this person who, for them, is a member of the family. He's not just a robot. He's actually a member of the family. And their daughter is crying, saying, when is Yang coming back? Is Yang coming back? And they're having all these discussions as to how do we let her know about death? How do we go get another one? We can't really get another one. I don't even think we can afford it, but it might be good for her to learn about death and all that. And so it becomes this sort of philosophical thing as to what makes us human, because he finds out that in the model that he bought in Yang, because he bought Yang secondhand, there's like this module in there and there's a conspiracy theorist who he goes to who tries to fix it, who's kind of like, it's spyware, man. I told you they're looking at us, man. It's spyware. And he turns out when he goes to an actual sort of like scientist at a museum, she's like, oh my God, this is like the mother lode. We never knew that this exists. This is actually, they made models where they said, we're going to let the robot themselves or the android themselves choose memories and say these things and so it's all about, so when he starts looking through it, it's about these snippets of Yang's life and the things that Yang has looked at and has decided, this is something I want to keep a hold of. And it becomes this sort of bit where it starts one of these philosophical things where it starts blurring the line as to, okay, so at what point does Yang kind of start really becoming human? And and you have this whole thing like Colin Farrell is a guy who bought a synthetic human for his daughter to be a part of his family, but hates clones. And his neighbor has 3 daughters who are all clones. It's this kind of like, it's a built world. It's a little bit futuristic. It kind of like goes into okay, what's going on here? And if you like your films a bit slower moving and where nothing really seems to happen, but people are just sort of like grappling with all these concepts of things, it might be for you. I quite liked it. It's a 4 out of 5, but I will say that it was a bit slow, and I stopped watching it a couple of times. I went back to it, and I never really felt, it was never really like a bind to stop watching watching it. It was like, oh my God, no, I gotta. It was kind of like, yeah, I can stop this. I can come back. It's no big deal. So 4 out of 5 for After Yang. I would recommend it. And if nothing else, try and Google the opening sequence or the title sequence of this film because it is mad. Especially when you think about Colin Farrell and Colin Farrell's like what's the word? He's his public persona, and they think that he's the one doing this sort of like dance sequence. It's bad. All right, cool.